Hello again, it's Miss Jones from Sew with Miss Jones. I'm now getting ready to sew the front and the back together with a back stitch, and I decided that I was going to break my rule about single threads, and I'm actually going to do a double thread. So let me get the end of this thread loose. Why is this so difficult? There we go. And when I use a double thread, I usually go from one shoulder and then from the opposite shoulder and then all the way down to my hand. So it's longer than one arm. It also goes across my body. So like I have the end on my left shoulder and I'm holding the spool in my right hand. And I'm going to cut the thread off there. Don't make it any bigger than that. You're going to have a mess. Now generally when I sew double, I put both of the loose ends together and put them through the eye. And you absolutely can do that. If you tie the two ends together then and you have an error, then you have a problem. I'm going to go ahead and do it with the two ends tied together. So I'm just going to put it through with one thread, and that's fuzzy. If you ever have a fuzzy end that doesn't want to go through the eye of your needle, just take a scissors and clip that little bit off. Okay, find the end. I'm going to pull my two ends together. I just decided that two threads might be a little bit stronger than one. Oh, when your hands are dry, it's hard to get a knot. There we go. So if you notice, I have the pillow away from me and the seam allowance towards me, and I always hand sewed the other direction. But I was recently watching someone who was doing traditional sewing, like what people did before they had sewing machines, and this actually is the way you're supposed to do it. That way you can keep it flat on something if you are sitting at a table. If you are sitting down, then it's not all bunched up in your lap. And so let me slide in here a little bit. And I am going to start right at the X. And I'm going to take both of those pins out. Keep your pin container close by because you want to be able to put your pins in it and not have them loose all over everywhere. Okay, I'm going to scrunch down here a little bit because you know I have a terrible time with it being so far away from my face. Now remember, when you do the back stitch, you go a little behind and a little ahead of the thread that's coming out. So a little behind, back to where you can actually touch the previous stitch, and then pull it flat. And we don't want this to pucker, so make them little, but don't pull too tight. Just pull them so that they're laying flat. So this polyester thread does not like to travel together, and so sometimes what I'll do is I'll just stop and slide my hand up the needle to make them friends together again. All right, so back to the previous stitch and then a little ahead of the thread. I have a personal project coming up and it's going to be all hand sewn, and I am so excited about doing it because it is an historical shirt. And even though I have a sewing machine, I am going to try to do this in the way that people did it back when this particular shirt was the style. Alrighty, and see, I got a little loopy-doo here. And I didn't intend to do that, but now I'm going to show you what happens when you have an error. Take your scissors and cut your thread real close to the needle and put the needle away for a second. Or actually, I'm going to use it to take the last 2 stitches out. Whenever I take out stitches by hand, I always use the eye of the needle. So I hold the point in my hand and then I get my needle underneath. It's what happened is when I took a stitch, they didn't both travel at the same time, so they were uneven. And that one's still not doing what it's supposed to do. So now they're not tied together anymore. It's knotted down here, but these 2 guys aren't tied together. And I'm going to even them off. And then I'm going to put both of these through here. Now, you should have a needle threader in your sewing kit. But with the needles that have a bigger eye, it's not too bad. Alrighty. So I'm going to do maybe about 5 more stitches. Okay, remember I'm going to go back and touch the previous stitch, go in there, and then go a little bit ahead of my thread that's coming out. My voice is sounding scratchy. It's got to be allergies. Now, if your pillow has a corner, whether it's an inside corner or an outside corner, you can't just jump over it. Otherwise, there will not be a point there. So as I am stitching along here, I'm actually going to stop at that point and take my needle all the way down to the back to complete that stitch. And then I'm going to start a new line completely here. Now I'm not going to tie it off. If I have enough thread, I'm going to keep going. But I just want to make sure that I go down through the fabric at that point. I'm going to go down, and then I'm going to start another stitch from here and go that direction. So just keep in mind, whenever you have a point, whether it's an inside point or an outside point, don't jump over that, otherwise so you don't need to watch me sew this whole thing together because it's going to take quite a while. I will be back when I have stitched all the way around my pillow, leaving that about maybe about 4 inches open between the 2 dots, the 2 X's. Bye for now.